can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of our people. In the days to come, we will be doing much more than exercising our constitutional right to vote. We will be determining the direction that our country takes. We will be taking responsibility for our future, the future of our families, our communities, and indeed our nation. As we cast our votes, we will be vindicating the struggles and the sacrifices of the generations before us who fought for this precious democracy that we now enjoy. As in every election that we have held since 1994, we expect this election to be held in conditions of peace and stability, to be free, fair, and credible. We commend the Independent Electoral Commission for the impressive work that they have undertaken in preparing for these elections. As a country, we have once again witnessed the capabilities of the IEC in the successful voter registration weekends, in the registration of parties and candidates, in the preparation of ballot papers, in the organization of overseas voting, and in the diligent application of our electoral laws. We convey our thanks and best wishes to the IEC commissioners, to the IEC staff, and to the thousands of election workers as they deliver on this most important responsibility of our nation in the coming days. One of the defining features of all our elections since 1994 has been their integrity. This has been made possible not only by the work and the conduct of the IEC, but also by the presence of party agents and independent observers from various parts of the world, including our own continent, as authorized by the African Union. The involvement of party agents gives people confidence that there is effective oversight of all aspects of the electoral process. Through the presence of local and international observers, we are able to satisfy ourselves that our elections conform not only to our own laws, but also to internationally accepted standards of freeness and fairness. We thank all the party agents and the election observers for the work they are doing and reiterate that they must be allowed to do their work without any form of hindrance, intimidation, or threats. As in previous elections, our law enforcement agencies and security services have made extensive preparations to ensure that these elections are peaceful and that all South Africans can freely exercise their right to vote. They have been deployed throughout the country to ensure that there are no disturbances or disruptions to the election process. We thank them for their professionalism, their dedication, and their vigilance. Over the course of the last few months, many different parties and candidates have vigorously and enthusiastically campaigned for votes. While the contestation has been robust and at times became heated, campaigning has been peaceful and free of intimidation. We commend all parties that have upheld the electoral code of conduct and that have ensured that their supporters adhere to the democratic principles that have long characterized our elections. We should all be concerned at reports that came out today about the obstruction of election activities, including unlawful entry at IEC storage sites in KwaZulu-Natal. We once again call upon all parties, all candidates, supporters, and every South African to refrain from any action that could interfere with the due process of the electoral process. Regardless of the outcome, let this election further entrench our democracy and strengthen our commitment to uphold this precious democracy. My fellow South Africans, this election brings to a close the 6th administration of our democracy. When this administration took office in 2019, our country stood at a turning point. We had endured a decade of corruption and state capture, of weak economic growth, and the erosion of our public institutions. Today, we have put that era behind us. We've placed South Africa on a new trajectory of recovery and laid a strong foundation for future growth. We have taken significant steps to reform our economy by implementing a number of reforms that affect various sectors of the economy. In tackling crime and corruption, we have introduced a number of initiatives and measures to reposition our criminal justice system. We've faced many challenges along the way, which have tested our resilience and our resolve as a people. Yet in each instance, we have confronted these challenges together. We have remained united. We have worked in partnership and in solidarity in many, many areas. Together as a nation, we brought state capture to an end. We dislodged the criminal networks that have stolen billions from our people, that had eroded our public institutions, and that had undermined the rule of law. Together, we worked to rebuild our law enforcement agencies, our security services, our state-owned enterprises that are still being rebuilt, and a number of other public bodies. Through the work of institutions like the National Prosecuting Agency, Investigating Directorate, the Hawks and the Special Investigating Unit, several state capture and corruption cases have been brought to court, and many more will still be brought to court. And billions of rands in stolen funds have been recovered and continue to be recovered. On Friday, I signed into law to establish the National Prosecuting Agency's Investigating Directorate against corruption as a permanent entity. There is still much that we need to do to end corruption in our country. However, as a country, we have sent a very clear message to the corrupt that they can no longer expect to get away with their crimes with impunity and without consequence. One of the developments that have defined the last 5 years was the COVID pandemic, which was the worst global health crisis in over a century. Our country and our people were not spared the devastation of the pandemic. More than 100,000 South Africans lost their lives to the illness. More than 2 million jobs were lost, and many businesses were forced to close. And yet the damage could have been far, far worse. As a country, we came together when it was most needed. We took extraordinary measures to keep ourselves and each other safe. We lowered the rate of infection and ensured that every person received the care that they needed. We introduced a massive package of social and economic support to protect vulnerable businesses, workers, and households from the destructive effects of the pandemic. More than 5.7 million workers received wage support through the special UIF scheme. Through the introduction of the special SRD grant, we provided relief to more than 11 million unemployed people at the height of the pandemic. This has now come down, the pandemic having come to an end. Working together, we succeeded in administering more than 39 million COVID vaccine doses. Even during the worst moments of the pandemic, we endured, and indeed we did overcome. This is how we are as South Africans. We confront every great difficulty and challenge with determination and courage. When in July 2021, it looked like our country would go up in flames, the people of South Africa stood firm against those who wanted to incite an insurrection. We proved that our democracy remains strong and our commitment to the Constitution of our country and the rule of law are resolute. When in April 2022, catastrophic floods struck parts of KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape and Northwest, South Africans came together to provide material assistance to those affected in order to help them rebuild their lives. And as we worked to rebuild our economy, South Africans came together in social partnerships to drive investment, to build infrastructure, and to remove the obstacles to inclusive growth. Our economy has returned to pre-COVID levels, and we have recovered jobs lost to the pandemic. As we confronted a debilitating electricity crisis, we came together as social partners. Through a concerted and focused effort, we achieved a sustained reduction in the severity of load shedding. Together, we supported the Eskom's effort to improve the performance of its power stations. We enabled investment in new electricity generation capacity on a scale that is unprecedented in our country's history. Working with financial institutions, development agencies, businesses, and professional organizations, we revitalized investment in infrastructure. The value of projects currently in construction and infrastructure is over 230 billion rand, including in areas such as energy, rural roads, as well as dams and a number of other important infrastructure facilities. Together, we mobilized more than 1.5 trillion rand in new investment commitments. This has led to the opening of new factories, new data centers, new production lines, and the improvement in a number of mines as well. Master plans have been finalized in 8 industries, including clothing and textiles, poultry, sugar, automotive, furniture, steel, tourism, and forestry. We have provided support to more than 1,000 black industrialists over the last 5 years, and today, more than 500,000 workers own shares in the companies that they work for. We have made this progress by working in partnership and continuing to build consensus. We came together to tackle the challenge of youth unemployment. Working with private sector partners, we established the Youth Employment Service, which has created over 144,000 work experiences for young people. We have worked across government and with NGOs to implement the Presidential Employment Stimulus. which has created more than 1.9 million work and livelihood opportunities for unemployed South Africans. And as the country confronted the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide, South Africans rallied together in defense of the lives and the safety of the women of our country. A national strategic plan on gender-based violence was developed, together with civil society, as a whole of society response to this national emergency. New laws were introduced to strengthen the response of the criminal justice system and centers that were established to provide support to survivors of gender-based violence. On Friday, I signed into law the establishment of a National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. This council will lead and coordinate our country's national response to dealing with gender-based violence. We have worked together to rebuild community policing forums and to provide them with the resources they need to be more effective in the fight against crime. This will continue as we have to reach many other community policing forums. We have increased the number of police on the street by 20,000 over the last 2 years and established specialized task teams in the police to tackle illegal mining, cable theft, cash-in-transit heists, gangsterism, other criminal activities, including economic crimes. This work is producing results. Arrests are being made, perpetrators are being sent to jail, and in many areas, the incidence of such crimes is slowly becoming reduced. Even under difficult conditions, over the last 5 years, we have made progress together in tackling poverty and improving people's lives. We worked together to implement the national minimum wage, which has increased the wages of more than 6 million workers, including farm workers and domestic workers. Last year, South Africa achieved its highest matric pass rate ever. Significantly, learners from schools where fees are not paid accounted for around 2/3 of the total bachelor passes obtained. These achievements are the result of a collective effort by the learners, the teachers, the education officials, the parents, and communities. They are also the result of programs to support children from poor families, including the Child Support Grant, the School Feeding Program, and the increase in no-fee schools. Working together, we have sustainably increased financial support for students from poor and working-class families. We have doubled the number of students receiving support from NSFAS over the last 5 years to well over 1 million in the last academic year. And we have reasserted our country's presence on the global stage, providing a strong voice for the developing world, particularly the global south, and for the oppressed and the powerless everywhere. We have worked towards silencing the guns throughout our continent, including through diplomacy and the deployment of our South African National Defence Force personnel as peacekeepers in a number of areas on our continent. Just a few days ago, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, our parliament that is, concluded the 6th work of the 6th Parliament. Over the course of 5 years, members of Parliament from all parties represented in Parliament have worked diligently to implement a clear electoral mandate to transform our country. They have worked alongside South Africans to consider and pass several transformative laws. They have convened public hearings in every part of the country, received thousands of submissions on every bill, and conducted their proceedings in an open and transparent manner, as dictated by our Constitution. From strengthening the laws against gender-based violence to making South African Sign Language our 12th official language, from ensuring transparency and accountability in political party funding to introducing the National Health Insurance, this Parliament has drawn on the views and the wishes of the people of South Africa. As the work of Parliament has come to an end, we thank all members of this 6th Parliament for their hard work and dedication over the last 5 years. We thank the presiding officers, the leaders of all political parties, the chairs of committees, the whips, and all the parliamentary staff for the work that they put in to make the 6th Parliament a working parliament. Fellow South Africans, the last 5 years have been a time of rebuilding and recovery. It has been about working together, not only to meet the challenges of the moment, but to put in place firm foundations for a better future for our country. As this 6th administration indeed draws to a close, and as we prepare for the 7th administration, let us build on the progress that we have made. At this moment in our path to renewal, we cannot afford to turn back. There is more work that still needs to be done to reposition our country. Let us draw strength and encouragement from the difficulties we have overcome together. I call upon all South Africans to go out in their numbers to cast their votes in these elections. We are a diverse people, but we are also a united nation. Let us be united in our commitment to advance our democracy. Let us work together to build a better country and a better future. May God continue to bless South Africa and to protect its people. Nkosi sikelela iAfrika. Morena boloka setjhaba sa heso. God seën Suid-Afrika. Modimo ha ba phatotjhetse Afrika tshipembe. Hosi katekisa Afrika. I thank you all and happy voting tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and on Wednesday. Thank you.